Hello everyone and welcome back to another Marvel Champions video. Today the Holly Heroes revealed a bunch more cards for the Rise of Red Skull campaign expansion. So we're just going to go through all these cards, going to let you know what I think of them. First up here, we got the alter ego side to Hawkeye. So Clint Barton, hand size 6, 9 hit points. Kind of wish he had maybe like 1 or 2 more hit points. 10 seems like it would be a good number for him. But anyway, 3 recovery. He's in shield and has this weapon of choice action. So spend 1 resource of any type, search your deck and discard pile for Hawkeye's bow, add it to your hand, shuffle your deck, limit once per phase. So it's not quite as good as Captain America's setup where you can basically just pull that in. I like that Hawkeye can do this kind of whenever he's in alter ego mode. He can basically search for the bow. You do have to pay 1 resource to do it, so if you do get the bow in your opening hand, it's probably better just to keep it, I think. But if for some reason there's an event that makes you discard it, like a treachery that says discard an upgrade, and that's the only upgrade you have, you discard the bow. You can then flip him into alter ego mode, and then do this action to pull the bow back to your hand. So that is Clint Barton. We're going to move into our next card here. Next up, we have Hawkeye. We talked about him yesterday. So 1 thwart, 2 attack, 1 defense, and you can exhaust him to ready his bow, which is pretty good. There's the bow. We talked about that yesterday as well, but it's restricted, max 2 per player. And your hero gets +1 attack, and each of your arrow attacks gains ranged. So it means retaliate won't trigger when you use those attacks. Hawkeye's quiver. So this is a new one. So 1 cost upgrade generates a mental resource if you discard it. It's an item. You may play arrow events attached to this card as if they were in your hand. And as a hero action, exhaust the quiver. Search the top 5 cards of your deck for an arrow event and attach it face up to this card. I like this because it keeps cards kind of like on this card, so they're technically not in your hand. So cards that are on there aren't really affecting your hand size. So like you can put an arrow on here and then potentially draw more cards once you go to your draw step at the end. Because normally you would just keep the card in your hand, but with this quiver, it allows you to play the arrows onto it and then also play them off of the quiver as well. So Hawkeye's quiver is pretty cool. I like that. The only issue might be if you're forced to discard the upgrade. I imagine the arrows on the quiver probably go with it. And then, so you kind of want to make sure you maybe have another upgrade on him that if you do have to discard an upgrade, have it be an upgrade that you are willing to lose, because it would be kind of a bummer to lose all of your arrows and this quiver. But the ability to basically have this almost as like a separate hand is pretty cool. So that is the quiver. We're going to move into our next card here. We have the Sonic Arrow. This was kind of partially revealed yesterday, but couldn't really tell what it said. So it's a 2-cost event, generates a mental resource when you play it, or when you discard it, I should say. Hero action, as an attack, exhaust the bow, confuse an enemy, deal 3 damage to it. 5 damage instead if the enemy is already confused. So if the enemy is not confused, it's going to deal 3 damage to them and confuse them. If they're already confused, it's going to deal 2 additional damage for 5 because status effects like tough and confused don't stack. So I like that it doesn't confuse them again, but it gives you additional damage, which is pretty cool. And then again with Hawkeye's quiver, you can play this on there and then play it off of the quiver later in the game. That's pretty good. Or use it when you need to. So I like that you can kind of have arrows stacked on the quiver and then kind of use them in a better situation. But that is the Sonic Arrow. We're gonna move into our next card. There's the Explosive Arrow. We talked about that yesterday. I like this card. So 1-cost event deals. Basically, you choose a player, deals 3 damage to the villain, and then each minion engage with that player. So it's a good way to maybe just get rid of a bunch of minions all at once. Next up, we have Team Training. 2-cost support generates physical resources when you discard it. It's a leadership card, which I really like. Play under any player's control, max 1 per player. Each ally you control gets +1 hit point. So I like this, especially in leadership for Maria Hill. Maria Hill is probably my favorite card in the game right now, just because she can attack, she can thwart. When you play her, you get to draw a card. This support here keeps her around at least for one more use, because she takes 1 indirect or incidental damage every time she attacks or thwarts. So this will allow you to get 1 more use out of her attack or thwart, which is pretty good. And then there's multiple ways to bring her back with Make the Call, Rapid Response, which was revealed in the Black Widow deck. So this keeps her around for longer, and then you have more ways to bring her back out as well. I like that it's also a support, so it stays in play, because it doesn't say anything about having to discard it, which is pretty good. Next up, we have Kate Bishop. We talked about her yesterday as well. So as an action, you can exhaust her, discard a card from your hand, and deal X damage, where that's the number of resource symbols on that card. So again, with your 2 resource generating cards or 3 resource generating cards, she can deal additional damage with that. So that is going to do it for our Hawkeye cards. We're going to move into some of the new cards for Spider Woman, as well as some other cards from the other aspects. We'll be right back with that. And first up, we have Jessica Drew. We talked about her yesterday. 3 recover, hand size of 6, 11 hit points. Double agent allows you to build your deck with 2 aspects as long as you use an equal number of cards from each of those aspects. As an action, equal to the top card of any deck. So we talked about that yesterday. So we're going to move into our next card, that's Spider Woman. So again, 1 attack, 1 thwart, 1 attack, 1 defense. She's an Avenger and a Spy. As an interrupt, when you play an aspect card, she gets +1 to everything until the end of the round. Limit once per round per aspect. And it's been revealed that she can actually, I think, get up to 5 in each of these, because some of her identity cards for her deck with the Spider-Woman logo are actually different aspects. So we'll move into that in just a second. So first card with that is Pheromones, 2-cost event. It generates a physical resource when you discard it. There's a hero action, stun and confuse the enemy. This card is both a Spider-Woman card and a leadership card. So I think you have to include all of her cards in her deck, but let's say you go with a couple different aspects. I think you might be able to use every aspect with her, because you get 2 additional aspects, and she's at least getting leadership in her deck. I don't know if she's getting any other aspect beside that, but this is a cool card because it stuns the enemy and confuses them. So it makes them so they can't attack, and then it makes them so the next time they would thwart, they don't, or not thwart. The next time they would scheme, they don't scheme. So that is Pheromones. Next card in her set is Press the Advantage. This is just an aggression card, so it can go in any deck. 1-cost event, generates a mental resource when you discard it. It's an attack, so hero attack, action, or hero action attack. Deal 2 damage to an enemy. If the enemy is stunned or confused, draw a card. So it works really well with Pheromones, because that Pheromones makes the enemy get stunned and confused, and then you do this to them, deal 2 damage to them, and then they get you get to draw a card off of it as well. So it's got some Black Panther artwork on there. So it looks like there are going to be cards in Spider-Woman's deck that are going to be, again, we're seeing at least leadership in her deck. We don't know if she's going to be coming in with 2 different aspects to start, but if she does, you can then build your deck with the other aspects. And people are speculating she can get up to, if you were to play all 4 events or 4 cards of each different aspect, she would be able to have 5 attack, 5 thwart, and 5 defense for that round, which is pretty insane. So that is going to do it for the Spider-Woman cards. We're going to move into a few other cards as well. We will right back with those. And next up, we have a new Spider-Man. This is in Czech. Hall of Heroes has translated it. So it looks like 5 cost, generates a mental resource, has 2 thwart, 2 attack. He's an Avenger, comes in with 4 hit points, and this is a Justice card. So it looks like the ability on him is, what it reads on the page is, Spider-Man, a Justice ally that removes 3 threat per player from a side scheme. So that's pretty crazy. So if you have side schemes you want to get rid of, this is a really interesting way to do it. He's kind of expensive at 5, but again, has 2 attack, 2 thwart, takes 1 indirect damage each time you do that, and then comes in with 4 hit points. So he could be, if there's like side schemes you want to get rid of, because it's 3. I think it says it's 3 threat per player. Removes 3 threat per player from a side scheme. So it only hits side schemes. So if there's no side schemes in play, he's probably not going to be as good. But if there's a bunch of side schemes in play, or a side scheme that just has a ton of threat on it, because usually threat will be there's a starting amount of threat and then threat per player that gets added initially. He can basically maybe potentially just clear off the side scheme with just that, which is pretty good. The next card we have up here is, what was it called again? Earth's Mightiest Heroes. So the translation is, it's a 0-cost event that exhausts an Avenger's character that you control to ready another Avenger. So if you have an ally that's an Avenger, you can basically exhaust them to potentially ready your main character that's also an Avenger. So it says, yeah, so 3, let's see, 0-cost event that exhausts an Avenger character you control to ready another Avenger. Doesn't say it has to be an ally, so it looks like it could be kind of like, if you're playing as an Avenger character as your main hero, you can exhaust like an Avenger ally to ready your main hero. That's pretty good, especially for 0 cost. It's a basic card, and it generates physical, or what is it called? Energy resources. Yeah, energy resources. And next up in this translator one, we have White Tiger, 0 cost. So she's part of the Taskmaster deck. She generates a wild resource when you discard it. So it looks like this is a card that can potentially go into a hero deck, but also is part of the villain deck as well, because it's part of Taskmaster. But looks like three thwart, one attack with one indirect damage or incidental damage each, with 3 hit points. And the translation is removes 3 threat from a scheme after spending a science resource after entering play. She seems to be campaign only card as she's part of the Taskmaster set, but is also a player card. So she's part of Taskmaster, but also a player card, and looks like it looks like you can build with that as well. So that's going to do for that card. We have a couple more cards to get through, so we're going to move right into those. We'll be right back with them. All right, next up we have Absorbing Man. We talked about him yesterday, but 1 scheme, 2 attack, 14 hit points per player, and it gains the trait of each environment in play. So yesterday we also revealed the Snowy Hillside environment, which is ice. So it's ice. It has surge. After Absorbing Man makes an undefended attack against you, place 1 threat on the main scheme, or 2 instead if there are 5 or more delay counters on the main scheme. And if it comes in as a boost card, it gets put into play. And here's how these environments actually are coming to play now. So we have the OMNI-MORPH Duplication. It's a treachery for Absorbing Man. Has a single boost symbol. It says when revealed, if Absorbing Man has the following traits, get these effects. So if he has the ice trait, you exhaust your identity card. If it has the metal trait, he gets a tough status token and heals damage. If it has a stone trait, you give him a 1 face down boost card. If it has the wood trait, discard 1 card at random from your hand. So basically, whatever traits he has, if there's multiple environments in play, I imagine these stack. So if he has like ice and metal, he basically exhausts your identity and he gains a tough status token or status card and heals 1 damage. So it looks like these, I imagine those traits on the environments will stack. And then he has the OMNI-MORPH Duplication. This is card 18 out of 25 out of that deck. I imagine with that being kind of like a key gameplay element of him is using these different traits to his advantage, that there'll be probably at least 2 of this in the deck. I can't guarantee that, but I'm imagining there's going to be at least more than 1 of this OMNI-MORPH Duplication in his deck. So that's that set of cards. We're going to move into our next set. We'll be right back with that. And next up we have Taskmaster. So this is a new version of Taskmaster. Taskmaster is already included in the Black Widow deck as the nemesis for that character. But looks like 13 hit points per player, 1 scheme, 2 attack. He's Hydra and Zoldak as his has those keywords. And the translation for Taskmaster is forces players to discard the top card from the encounter deck and deal damage equal to the boost icons on the card after swapping to hero form. So it looks like once a character swaps into hero form, they'll take damage based on the number of boost symbols on a card. Looks like it's some kind of reaction, but I'm not sure exactly when it triggers. Once this is actually shown in English, I think we'll have a better idea of when the card will actually trigger. It looks like it might be some kind of response, maybe a response to them flipping into hero mode. But basically, you discard a boost card, a card off the encounter deck, and the number of boost symbols does that much damage to those heroes. So that is that version of Taskmaster. We're going to move into our next set of cards. And next up, we have Zola. So another villain, 12 hit points per player, 2 scheme, 1 attack. He's an android and Hydra and has a retaliate 1. So whenever you kind of deal damage to him, he deals damage back. Unless, of course, you're using Hawkeye's bow with those arrows, and it makes the arrows not trigger retaliate because it gets ranged. But that's Zola. The next card in the Zola set is ZOLA'S Mutate, which is a minion. So let's see. 1 scheme, 2 attack, 5 hit points. It's Hydra and the Mutate. When revealed, discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until a tech attachment is discarded. Attach that to ZOLA'S Mutate. So this is pretty strong. So 5 hit points, 2 attack, 1 scheme. The scheme isn't high, but the attack is decent. And then it gets, when it comes into play, it gets to basically add a tech attachment to it, which could do. We don't know what the tech attachment those attachments do yet. I imagine they maybe increase attack, maybe increase scheme. Who knows really? But also, if it's revealed as a boost, it just gets shuffled back into the encounter deck. So there's going to be kind of no real way to get rid of this unless you just engage it, defeat it, and goes to the discard pile. If it comes out as a boost, it just goes right back into the deck and gets shuffled in. So that is ZOLA'S Mutate. That's going to do it for the Zola cards. We're going to move into our couple. I think we have one more card after this. So we'll be right back with that. And final card revealed today is Red Skull. So 12 hit points per player. Comes in with 2 scheme, 0 attack with a asterisk. He's Hydra. And the translation for him, let me bring that up again, is Red Skull gets plus 1 attack per side scheme in play. So he has no attack to start, but there's a bunch of side schemes. He'll get plus 1 attack for those, and then I imagine he'll be able to augment that with boost cards. So there's a couple schemes in play that are side schemes. He'll get his base attack will be 2 plus whatever the boost symbols on the revealed boost cards are. So that is Red Skull. Again, we don't have any other information on him. But it looks like this is stage 1. So it looks like Zola and Zola, Absorbing Man, and Red Skull are all stage 1. We don't know exactly what their stage 2 is going to be, what their hit points are going to be, or what their abilities are. But this is just some more cards that were revealed from the Hall of Heroes website. Again, link in the description to check them out. They're definitely an excellent resource for basically anything related to Marvel Champions. We'll be back with more cards as more cards get revealed. Until then, thanks again for watching, and take care.